Hello. I'd like you to think about a time recently where you needed to research or analyze something complex. If you're in IT or engineering, perhaps you had to research what other companies in your space are doing with AI-assisted coding agents to figure out what makes sense for your organization. Or maybe you're in marketing, and so for you, your research might have been looking at what your competitors are doing to develop a marketing plan or an advertising strategy. Or maybe you're, like me, you're in product management and you were digging into customer feedback to figure out what new features you should build or what the roadmap should look like. Or maybe you're a business analyst or you're in business intelligence and you needed to dig into your internal metrics and dashboards to figure out the root cause of an issue that you're experiencing. The fact is, all across your organization, there are probably users today who are doing research as part of their day-to-day jobs, even though they may not have research in their official job title. The problem is that business research is challenging, as I'm sure most of the folks here would attest to. So for instance, there's not enough time. Doing high-quality, deep research takes time that we oftentimes don't have. Sometimes the information that we're trying to access is stored in disparate systems, and we don't have access to it. Or maybe you don't even know what information your company subscribes to that you should have access to. Or let's say you're doing internet research. I'm sure we've all had the experience of finding a website that has information that's outdated or unreliable. Or perhaps you're trying to do research using one of the new AI tools, but it's not approved to handle your company data. Or the results that you're getting are just not reliable enough to use in your work. To address these problems, we built Quick Research. Quick Research provides the most accurate and reliable AI research. It works across enterprise data, the web, and premium third-party data sources to deliver verifiable, expert-level insights in minutes. My name is John Einkoff. I'm a principal product manager at AWS. I work on Quick Research specifically. During the next couple of minutes, I'm going to give you a brief overview of Quick Suite, and then I'm going to go a little bit deeper on Quick Research specifically. Next, we're going to have Nikki Sussman, Enterprise AI Tech Lead at Principal Financial Group, talk to us about how Principal Financial Group is using Quick Research. And then finally, my colleague, Natalie Hirsch, Gen AI Specialist at AWS, is going to be joining us to talk about how you can automate research and is going to walk us through a case study from AstraZeneca so we can see it in action in the healthcare and life sciences industry. So let's get started. Quick Suite, Amazon Quick Suite, is an agentic AI application for business users. It pulls together all of your data and applications to make it easier for you to access the data that you need and to take action in the tools that you use as part of your work. There's a lot going on with Quick Suite. I'll just give you a couple of highlights. Spaces is a feature that helps you organize files, dashboards, and data sources so that you can collaborate with teammates and give access to company knowledge to agents that you create. Chat Agents helps you create custom AI assistants that have access to your company data and third-party data. Research is what we're going to go deeper on in this session. This is for when you need to do complex business research or analysis that would ordinarily take hours, days, or even weeks. QuickSight is a service that lets you visualize your data, create and share dashboards. Many of the folks in this room may be using QuickSight already. Quick Flows is a feature that helps you automate common tasks in your day-to-day work, getting ready for meetings, sending emails, things like that. Automate is for automating more complex business processes. So Quick Research is used in a large variety of use cases. So I'm just going to highlight a few here. So if you're in sales, you can use something like Quick Research to analyze a company to prepare a sales plan or to prepare for a meeting. Somebody in marketing might use Quick Research to analyze customer data, market trends, to develop marketing plans, marketing strategies. Somebody in policy or regulatory might use a tool like this to evaluate how laws and regulations that are ever evolving may impact your business. Somebody in product might use quick research to come up with new product ideas or to refine a roadmap. A business analyst or a business intelligence engineer might use it to dig into metrics to prepare for a weekly or a monthly business review. Somebody in M&A or corp development might use quick research to do due diligence on a company that you're considering acquiring or partnering with. One of the things that makes quick research so powerful is that it supports a wide range of data sources. It starts with your own company data. So if you have documents, files in OneDrive, SharePoint, other knowledge bases like this, you can pull it in and do research on those sources. If you have files in S3, you can pull those in. If you have dashboards in QuickSight or you have files in Spaces, you can pull those into the research. You can also upload your own files from your laptop if that's part of the research plan. Of course, it can also search across the web. One of the things that's really powerful about quick research is that you can control what websites the agent is using. So if you have a list of websites that you want to prioritize or a list of sites that you want to avoid, you can provide that to the agent. It will steer where the agent is getting its information. We also support hundreds of premium media outlets from websites like the New York Times, the Associated Press, Forbes, Washington Post, and hundreds of others. And as of last week, we announced support for third-party data sources, S&P Global, IDC, FactSet, PubMed. This is just the start. We're going to be adding more and more premium third-party data sources over time, and we're very excited about that because it continues to increase the quality and the depth of the research that you can produce. So let's see it in action. I'm going to show you with a simple example how you use the tool, and I'll point out a few things as we go. So what we're looking at here is the home page for Quick Suite. If you look on the left, you'll see a navigation pane. This is where you access all of those features that I was talking about earlier: flows, chat agent, spaces, research. We're going to click on the research tab here to see the quick research homepage. What you're seeing here is a list of the research reports that have been run in this account recently. I'm going to click on the button at the top right that says New Research. So on this page is where you configure your research. We've designed this to be extremely simple to use. So what you're going to start with is adding your research objective at the top left. So this is your prompt or your research goal. For this example, what we're going to do is, I'll read it aloud in case you can't read off the screen. The font is a little bit small. It says, create a Gen AI strategy for a major US airline. Include an analysis of what competitors are doing, identify 10 high-priority use cases, describe the technical and organizational factors that are required for success, and develop a 3-year implementation plan. So this is fairly complex. There's a lot going on here. I would expect something like this to ordinarily take a few days, maybe a few weeks. Using this tool, you actually get back a 20-page report in 20 minutes. Once you've added your research goal, look at the bottom left. This is where you configure what sources you want to use in your research. So for this example, I'm just going to use web search, and I'm going to add a third-party data provider, IDC, because I know that IDC provides a wealth of insights for the technology market, and it probably has some interesting insights on Gen AI strategies. Now, if you were actually working at an airline doing this research, you would probably add some company files. You might add some documents from SharePoint. I'm not going to do that for this example, but if you wanted to, the way you would do that is through the little tab that says Quick Suite Assets. So once I'm happy with the research prompt, I'm going to click the button Create Plan. This is where I've selected IDC. So once I click Create Plan, about 20, 30 seconds later, I'm going to view this research plan. What this is it's a list of the topics that the agent is going to go and investigate. And if I'm happy with this, I can go ahead and execute the research, but I can also refine it. And so let's say I want to make a change to the plan. The way I do that is in the little text box on the right, I can add a comment. You'll also notice there are some recommendations from the agent that I can choose to address or not address. So in this case, the agent is saying, you might want to specify which airline which I didn't include in my prompt. The agent is also recommending, maybe you should provide parameters around what's your budget for this. So I find oftentimes these recommendations are pretty helpful. For now, I'm going to skip through this, and we're just going to start the research. But in the real world, you would probably want to look at these recommendations and refine the plan. So I'm going to click the button, Start Researching. At this point, the research kicks off. It will typically take about 20 minutes to complete. It may be a little less, it may be a little bit more. It depends on how many data sources you're using, how complicated your research goal is, but 20 minutes is about average. While the research is happening, you can watch it in action, so you can see what the agent is doing, what websites is it looking at, what insights is it developing. You can also just close the tab and come back. You'll get a notification when the research is done. When the research is complete, you'll see a page like this. This is what the final research report looks like. And as I mentioned earlier, it's quite thorough. It may be 20 pages, 30 pages long. If we scroll through it, one of the sections in the report that I asked for is a roadmap. So this is a Gantt chart view of the roadmap where it's showing all of the initiatives described earlier in the report and then laying it out time-wise. Now, if I read the line right before the chart, right after the chart, it says, the implementation timeline follows a structured 3-phase approach based on BCG's deploy, reshape, invent framework. Now, I've not heard of this framework before. Let's say as a user, I want to dig in and understand that better. What I'm going to do is, you'll notice there's a little icon that says 11. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to tell me where that came from. And if I want, I can click on this, and it will deep link. It'll open a new tab and deep link me into that article. I can read all about it. Throughout the whole report, you'll see lots of source citations, which is really helpful for you to understand more detail about what's in the report. All right, so let's say I keep scrolling, and in the section of the report that talks about the key use cases, one of the use cases here is using Gen AI to develop a customer service conversational AI and customer service automation. So let's say as a user, I'm really interested in that and I want more detail. All I need to do is highlight the text or add a global comment in the report, and I can ask for more detail. So in this case, I've highlighted the words customer service automation, and I've added the comment, create a dedicated section on this topic. The agent will take that feedback, and it will go and work on that. And it will come back, and the report will be updated, and with a brand new section, maybe a page or 2 pages just on that topic. And so you can go through this, and you can keep iterating with the agent until you get the research to be exactly what you need for your purposes. Now, if I keep going, you may have noticed, it's maybe a little hard to see on the screen, but there's a little icon here with some bars and a plus sign. You'll see that throughout the report in places where the statement is complex. So maybe it's using multiple sources, or there's a complex calculation that's happening. And so when you click on this icon, it will bring up a right pane where you can dig into that statement in depth. You can see all the sources that are being used, the content within those sources. If there are logical inferences being made, it explains the logic. So we refer to this feature as tracing, and it's really helpful when you've got a complex statement that you really need to unpack. Now, I said earlier, this report is quite long. You may not want to read 20 pages or 30 pages. Let's say what you really want is an executive summary, 2 pages long. What you're going to do then is click on the little button at the top right that says Summarize. It will bring up this page. You can either provide custom instructions for how you want the summary to be created, or you can just select one of the presets. In this example, I'm just going to click on the button that says Executive Summary. And about 30 seconds later, I'll have a crisp 1.5, 2-page summary that I can then download and share. So hopefully this gives you a sense of how easy it is to use quick research, and also a sense of how it can provide value for users across your organization. Next, we're going to hear from Nikki from Principal Financial Group. She's going to talk to us about how Principal Financial Group has been using quick research and some of the lessons that they have learned along the way.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So I'm going to start off with a brief overview of who we are. Principal is a global financial services company with specialized solutions helping people, businesses, and institutions reach their long-term financial goals and access greater financial security. We have an integrated business model across retirement, benefits and protection, and asset management, working together to deliver holistic and customizable solutions to more than 71 million customers in more than 80 markets around the world. We have nearly 20,000 global employees with about 4,000 in IT, and they all work together across all business functions with one shared focus: to continuously improve the experience for every customer we serve. I'm here today to tell you about our real-world story, our challenge, our journey, our wins, what worked and what didn't, and what genuinely surprised us along the way. So let's get started. What if I told you that our biggest win from quick research wasn't actually solving the problem that we set out to solve? It was discovering new research opportunities that we never knew we had time for. We started with a strong use case. Our private market products team in our real estate asset management division needed to establish 2 new funds. And that traditional research process took 3 to 4 weeks per fund. Establishing a fund requires comprehensive research across competitive analysis, market opportunities, regulatory requirements, investment strategy, operational infrastructure, and more. And all of those are key components to determine the fund's viability and structure. Our problem was not a lack of expertise, it was where that expertise was going. Our analysts were spending their time on manual internet searches, requests, and curating market reports, instead of actually analyzing the data and developing those investment insights. We saw an opportunity to transform this process with quick research, and we started by using just publicly available data to validate our approach and prove out the platform. What immediately surprised the team was that quick research didn't just make research faster and enhance what they did. It actually allowed them to produce more in-depth research at a higher quality than they previously would have been able to justify the time for. Even with just publicly available data, the team was able to reduce their timeline from 3 to 4 weeks down to 1 week. And when they were able to stop asking, do we have time to research that, they were able to start asking, what else should we be researching? How many of you have great ideas that never get researched because they would just take too long? Yes, that is exactly what changed for us, because word about quick research spread so fast. We went from that one use case to teams across the entire enterprise asking for access, basically overnight. We had software engineers using it for technical research and vendor evaluations. We had enterprise architects leveraging it for strategy assessments. We had our investment, our marketing, different strategy teams all finding new applications from due diligence to regulatory research. But we also had an unexpected outcome. You heard John talk about Quick Suite as this ecosystem with all of these tools. And our users started getting excited not just about quick research as a standalone tool, but the entire Quick Suite ecosystem. Could they upload research to a shared space? Could teams from other departments build on the same research foundation? Our team started imagining these custom agents and automated workflows, and most importantly, breaking down the silos between teams and departments. Because of this, quick research became our proof point for what was possible, and we were excited to see it start going across the enterprise for all of these different diverse use cases. But there were a couple key capabilities that really made it effective for enterprise teams, and specifically within Principal. First and foremost, we loved the persistent research capability because you can go back to old research, you can edit, you can refine, you can then share that out, summarize like John shared. But when we were going through this, we learned to always double check where the data was pulling from. Because as teams started integrating those internal sources, we learned that our proprietary data made a night and day difference in terms of reliability, accuracy, as we started building on these different research foundations. We also found that quick research's transparency, which again John shared, really helped our users learn to trust the platform. Because we were able to see exactly where a claim was being pulled from, users were able to dive deeper into these complex insights and ensure that the reasoning behind those insights was accurate and valid for their use cases. But what we found really set quick research apart from traditional tools was, again, that ecosystem integration, but with the security controls that made us comfortable leveraging our company confidential data within it for that advanced research. But one of our users really put it perfectly. Quick research excels when you're trying to uncover solutions that your teams might be blind to. And this is especially critical for filling knowledge gaps like architecture questions or organizational structure challenges. But none of this matters if you don't know how to ask the right question. We're all familiar with prompt engineering. It's been all the rage for like 2 years now. We know about prompt engineering. But quick research takes it to a different level. Let me show you what I mean. And I promise you don't have to read this slide. I'm going to talk through everything that's on here. But this is just an example of one of our prompts to show you what we found worked best within quick research. And I actually had to trim this down quite a bit to make it fit on the slide. But first and foremost, and I think it's quite obvious, this works because it's not a simple sentence or a single request. It is structured and detailed. We start specific. Instead of saying, tell me about GDPR, we specifically call out US-based asset managers with global operations. And this immediately eliminates thousands of irrelevant research results. We break it into clear sections: core requirements, industry impact, compliance integration, implementation framework. And this helps quick research structure its approach as it conducts the research. Next, we tell it exactly where to look: European Data Board protection guidelines, authority guidance, recent enforcement actions. And finally, this is what we ask for at the end: a practical compliance checklist, risk assessment matrix, implementation timeline, because we want tools that our teams can immediately use and not just another report that they have to sit there and read. But what we found is that quick chat excels when you are very precise about what you want, where it's going to be used, and how you're going to use it. That specificity wins when it comes to quick research. But this level of prompt mastery did not come to our users naturally, believe it or not. One of the things that we found was that using quick chat really helped us refine and iterate on our prompts, because the platform is self-aware. It's able to provide suggestions and recommendations on how to improve the prompt to become more precise. But this is just one thing. We teach our users prompt engineering. We teach them how to write the correct prompt. But when it comes to implementation, we need to talk about organizational strategy as well. So some of the key lessons that were the difference between that single use case and enterprise-wide demand are here. First and foremost, the technical implementation is straightforward. And I say that with a background in engineering. I know how complex things can get. But you literally just log into Quick Suite and quick research is there. We already had security groups configured in our Azure tenant that we were able to immediately leverage within Quick Suite because of its native identity center integration. So all of the user onboarding natively followed our enterprise guidance for identity and access management without having to jump through hoops, which was amazing. But secondly, we found that governance matters more than you think. So upfront, establish clear guidelines about what data can be included in Quick Suite and Quick Research, how that data gets stored, how it gets shared, who has access to what. It's your standard data governance and AI governance questions, but on a bit of a broader scale because Quick Suite does have so many different functions and foundations within it. Next, we found comprehensive user training was absolutely critical. Both prompt engineering, how to use the tool, what to do with the outcomes, all the way down to what is an agent. So make sure that you're training your users on all the possibilities of quick research as well as the entire ecosystem. But don't just stop at doing it with your early adopters. Plan to scale that training as your adoption grows. Next, and this one might be the most important, get executive sponsorship early. Make sure your leadership knows what's going on, and make sure that they understand that this tool isn't just about faster research, it's about competitive advantage through knowledge transformation. Really think about what happens when success scales. Teams are going to want to create those shared research repositories and integrate your confidential data. And all of these things are going to require leadership buy-in. And if you don't have that from the start, you will hit organizational roadblocks that no amount of technical success can overcome. And the last one, this is a bit more fun, is plan for success, because when this works, it's going to work fast. You will have organic adoption across your enterprise, so you need to make sure that your infrastructure and your support model can scale with that demand. So these lessons shaped how we're scaling quick research across Principal, because we found that when you get that foundation right, the next exciting challenge is the growth that comes next. So to wrap this up, where are we today? Well, we're live in production. We are actively onboarding what we call high-value use cases, but not necessarily high-dollar value. It's the scenarios that really showcase quick research's differentiating capabilities and true potential in our environment. We are building momentum, and we're actively establishing our roadmap based on these real-world outcomes. And the diversity of teams wanting access continues to surprise us. But let me leave you with this. Quick research isn't just about getting faster answers. It's about asking bigger and better questions. Because when you give your teams the ability to dive deeper and explore blind spots, you're not just increasing productivity. You're creating advantage through knowledge transformation, faster decision-making, and that faster market response. We didn't just speed up our research. That 3 to 4 weeks down to 1 week was amazing, but don't get me wrong, and we're continuing to work through that and improve it. But we fundamentally changed our relationship with curiosity, because teams started tackling strategic questions that they had never even proposed before, because that barrier to exploration had disappeared. My advice to you is don't just think about your current strategic research bottlenecks. Think about the strategic questions that your teams aren't even asking because they seem too big to tackle. Because that is where quick research is going to create transformation. And that shift from efficiency to curiosity is exactly where innovation becomes inevitable. And when teams start asking those bigger questions, well, that's exactly why Natalie's here to walk you through how Quick Flows automates what comes next. Natalie?
Thank you, Nikki. So hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Hirsch. I'm on the Amazon QuickSuite go-to-market team. And my job is to work with customers like yourselves, as well as with our field and partner teams to help them understand how QuickSuite can truly transform the way your employees are working. So I know this latte on your screen has you thinking about your next coffee break, but I want you to stay with me for just a couple more minutes. So I don't know about you, but I personally end up reaching out for coffee when I know I have to do repetitive work, right? And a lot of times that work can be very, very important, but right in my head I'm thinking, I know how to do this. It's just going to take me a little bit longer, always longer than I plan on. Right? So I grab my coffee, and with research tasks in particular, I actually love the research side of things, but by the time I have to start summarizing and writing that, especially in a format that my leadership is expecting, I've probably downed 3 coffees. So just take a second, think about if you have similar situations, right? At some point in your process, right, where you find yourself reaching out for coffee, and that's frustrating. And let's talk about maybe a scenario where we can make this a more relaxing and enjoyable experience for all of you, and less caffeinated. So maybe you're preparing for an important architecture review this afternoon, and you actually have a lot of research tasks for this. You've got to check out what are the latest LLM benchmarks. Maybe you have to check out your competitor API changes, emerging security advisories for your stack, and then you've got to get that all into Confluence. So I know you're thinking to yourself, she said this was going to be more relaxing, and here's why it is. we can now today put this all together in a workflow. So instead of having to do all these different tasks, right, maybe going over to quick research and doing all of that manually and then summarizing it, still copying and pasting into various documents, we can now do this in step-by-step workflows within quick research. So I'm really excited to share that and dive deeper into that with you today. So you heard from John earlier, you've already seen this slide, but I'm going to take a couple minutes to dive a little bit deeper into it now, because at this point we're going to be talking about how several QuickSpeak capabilities work together to make this happen. So I'm going to start at the bottom. I'd like to think of this as like our knowledge layer. And so we have company data, we have connectors to both unstructured data sets, think of like SharePoint, Google Drive, right, Confluence, uploaded files. Right? We also have connectors for structured data. Think Snowflake, Redshift, those types of things. All of those, when you curate them into a space, can be used within quick research as knowledge sources. We also have a concept called actions. Those are for real-time, both read and write actions with third-party applications. And so we have native connectors to a lot of sources, as well as API and MCP, where you can use those to connect. And so examples there might be, you might use QuickSuite to give you a list of Jira tickets assigned to you, or maybe, send an email, or, post something to Slack or Teams. And so while actions are not yet supported within quick research, they are supported within our chat agents and our automations. And that's going to be important in a moment. So this middle layer, we don't have time to talk about that today, but that's our governance and security layer, and I just want to make sure, right, you're all thinking about that, of course. If you're using research in this company environment and you're putting your company data in it, you definitely need to be thinking about having a product that, takes this into account and for which it's really important. And then at the top, again, John did introduce these to you, but just to reiterate, right, we have spaces where you're going to curate these various knowledge sources. Those can be used within chat agents, within research. With QuickSight, you're able to have dashboards and scenario analysis. And then we get to our automations. So flows, as John mentioned, is more for like team and personal productivity. Right? You're going to see in a moment, we're going to really dive deeper into flows. I also want to tell you about Automate. Automate is for generally more complex workflows. You can mix both like deterministic and non-deterministic types of steps into pretty complex things. And we will bring this up in a moment as part of one of our examples. But we're going to really be focusing on flows. And the reason for that is because what we released last Friday was actually the ability to call research within a flow. So flows are really easy to get started with. Anybody here, any business user should be able to get started with flows because you use natural language to describe the workflow that you want. And it's going to actually, once you do that, it's going to automatically build out some editable steps for you. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what that means, right, if you're deciding to use a research step. So first, flows are going to let you create reusable research workflows. Nikki was just talking about how important prompts are, right, for research. And think about that. Like, if you're just doing it manually, you have the opportunity, like John showed you, to go back and forth and to really refine the outline and refine what you want out of the research. But once you're getting into automation, you want to make sure that saved prompt is really solid. And so what I think is really great about the way we do it in flows is you can create this reusable prompt, but you can also have input parameters, so variables. So when somebody's running this, like in my case, I'll show you in a moment, all I have to do is enter the customer name, and all of a sudden that prompt is personalized, but it's a vetted prompt, right, that somebody put in here to then share with their team. There's also going to be situations where you don't want your team copying and pasting and maybe making edits, right? You maybe have taken the time to really do that prompt engineering, and you want to have consistent output. So the thing with flows too is if they're running the flow you shared with them, they can't make that edit on the prompt, right? They're just going to be able to change the input parameters, and that's it. The other thing, right, that works with flows is the ability to then have different types of steps before or after it. So in my situation here, I do have an input step, but then after that, I'm getting meeting notes, I'm gonna generate speaking points, I'm gonna send a Slack message, and I'm gonna dive into this in a moment and we'll get a little bit more under the hood. So before I do that, what I'm gonna do is do a little bit before and after, show and tell, right? So for me, as I mentioned, I work a lot with customers, and so a big part of my daily life is preparing for meetings with customers. And here's how it used to work for me before, right? I would have to look at my calendar, figure out what my customer meetings are, take a look at that agenda, right? So I know what I need to prepare for. And then I like to do web research, right? I like to go to their website. I like to do some just checking the search engine, checking the news. What are some initiatives that are important to our customers so that I can understand, right, how AWS can help them. On the other side, I'm also doing internal research. So I actually only joined AWS a little over a year ago, and I will tell you that when I first started, this took me a lot of time, right? Understanding all the different AWS services, understanding what case studies are available, right? As you can imagine, we have so much different documentation available, not only externally, but internally as well to support all of you guys. Right? And then by the time I'm done, I'm making a plan, I'm synthesizing that to share it with our account team or for myself. And that, I mean, honestly, can take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, used to. Now here's how I'm getting a lot of that done in 10 seconds, which is crazy, right? So whenever I agree to a new customer meeting, I start my flow. I literally type the customer name and hit enter. From there, it's gonna kick off a research step. That research step is gonna check both public sources, and it's also connected to my Quick Suite space. So that's a curated space that we have that includes both external documentation as well as some of those internal resources, right? With the case studies and industry use cases, things like that. Separately, I'm actually using a chat agent step. And I could have done this as separate actions, but my chat agent step is a bit more efficient in that I have it set up to check my email, my Slack, my OneDrive notes, my calendar, right? So that's where it's kind of doing all of my connected internal company sources to make sure that this flow understands what is my history with this customer. After that, we're gonna generate some speaking points. So I have a step that we call a Quick Suite data step, right? It's gonna take the results from these previous steps and it's gonna combine that along with an additional prompt to create those speaking points in a format that I like. And then the last one, I'm actually sending myself a Slack message because I like to read things in Slack. And it's just helpful to refer back to quickly. So a couple things here that I really want to point out. When a lot of times when we're talking to people about automations, sometimes people get scared because they're like, oh, I still need a human in the loop. And I want to tell you that that is super important and built into our flows. So there's a couple different ways that is the case. One is when I'm sending the Slack message, I mean, for myself, this doesn't matter as much, but if I was to send something like posting to a team channel or something, I'd want to approve that before it sends, right? Definitely before I'm sending an email or something like that. You can actually add in additional inputs so that at any point in time, you can kind of stop the flow before you let it continue running if you want to verify it. I can go back to any of the previous steps, so I can, and sometimes that's important. I'm reviewing the meeting speaking notes and I want to dive into something deeper. I can go back to that research report. I can take a look at the sources. I can go back and see what it's pulling from my notes and I can even chat with the flow to say, hey, can you update this? Maybe I wasn't fully satisfied with one particular step. So very important to have that. The idea behind this is definitely not to just do everything for you and move forward. It's to make you a better employee and to be able to just spend your time on the more strategic work as it relates to the research and taking action from it. So now the flow I just showed you was on demand, right? Meaning I run it with my specific inputs whenever I have a meeting to prepare for. But flows can also be scheduled to run automatically on a recurring basis. And I think that's perfect. There's certain things that you need to do on a consistent and predictable basis. So example, maybe, right, every Monday, that you need to stay current on your cloud infrastructure updates. And ideally, this is something that you're just gonna schedule. You don't wanna have to remember to kick it off, right? So what you can do is actually schedule it with research. You can do it daily, weekly, right? Whatever makes the most sense. And so what I think is really awesome about this is another thing that we just launched last week. It's turning research from not only reactive, meaning like, okay, I know I need to go research this now in response to something, but being proactive, meaning like the research is ready before I'm even ready to think about it. And that's really helpful. So I want to show you how one of our customers is planning to use this at scale. AstraZeneca is a leading global biopharmaceutical company. They came to us with a challenge that I think really demonstrates well the power of automated research. So let's start with their goals. One of the key AstraZeneca therapy areas, working with their IT colleagues, wanted to enhance their intelligent alerts capabilities. And they had three main drivers. One, market leadership acceleration. So they wanted proactive alerts on the latest scientific outcomes so they could rapidly capture opportunities and make informed business decisions. Second, they're thinking a lot about strategic executive empowerment. By automating intelligence gathering into alerts, this is going to free up their leaders to focus on high-value strategic decision-making and not spend as much time sifting through data. And third, real-time competitive advantage, right? They want to use agents to remove the need for information review via multiple channels. And so they came to us saying, hey, we need a solution with three very specific requirements, right? They want to aggregate real-time insights across multiple sources, named sources, from the past 24 hours. These might include scientific journals, regulatory filings, and competitor updates. Next, they want to summarize this breaking news, but specifically tailored to their projects and therapeutic areas, right? That analysis is really important. A lot of times you think about research as, just gathering information, but our Quick Research does an amazing job with analyzing that as well. Last, they want to send leadership summaries that are accurate, timely, relevant, and not duplicative. They don't want to waste their leaders' time, with proper scientific citations for onward review. So let's talk about the approach. Actually, for me, it was a really cool experience when this project kicked off, because they came to us and said, hey, we just spent 2 hours with Quick Research and flows. We've been trying other tools, but we can see immediately how this is going to help us scale, but in a tailored approach, right, to help our R&D colleagues. And so this is how we started working with them. We started thinking first about the data sources. So when this project kicked off, we did not yet have the capability that John mentioned about being able to specify specific websites. And so, as I mentioned earlier, their requirement was really gathering data from named sources. And so we approached this in two different ways. One is we have a web crawler data connector. Right, so as you recall in my QuickSuite diagram, right, we have these managed connectors for unstructured data. One of those is a web crawler. So we are using that for some of the sources. And then we're actually also using Quick Automate. Quick Automate has UI agent capabilities built into it. And those UI agents, you can give it some instructions to go to websites to look for information. And that is actually how we are gathering information from some of the other sources. From there, right, they started to say, okay, well, how can we optimize the research and analysis piece? And there's three things I want to share with you on that piece. So one is they experimented with single versus multiple reports. So what they found is that for their particular use case, they actually decided that they were getting better results when they split some of their prompts into various reports. They also talked about website content filtering. So because they had made this decision to kind of curate the data sources elsewhere, not using the features from Quick Research, they actually decided to turn web off. So they are truly using the research, right, purely on company data that's already been curated and not going out to the web in real time when they run research. The last thing is they had this date requirement. They really want to focus on the last 24 hours. And so that took some prompt engineering within research to be able to make sure that it's really focusing on that last 24 hours. And so finally, now they're pulling it all together with the quick flows, right? That's consolidating some of these reports, deduplicating against previous reports, validating, and then getting to the point where it sends a leadership email in a very beautiful HTML format in Outlook. So what's next for this project? So this MVP is about to go to production soon, and based on the work to date, AstraZeneca sees value in continuing to invest in scale. So I'm very happy about that. Their optimization plans include actually moving to APIs for some of the sources that support them, because that's going to help reduce the web crawler and UI agent processing time. And I think this is good insight, right? Not every single step has to be agentic, right? There are definitely times where you still want to use APIs and go straight to the source. They're also going to be measuring retrieval precision for some of those web crawlers and seeing if they can make some improvements there. They're also continuing to measure success, right? That's important to really get the business confidence in this. So they're benchmarking performance and accuracy. And then they're planning to scale. They want to monitor more therapeutic areas and sources. They want to get insights from the end users in R&D who are receiving these alerts, right? They want to make sure that they can tailor and enhance the experience. And then they do plan to actually move from a semi-automation to full automation once they've achieved the business confidence in this. All right, so we heard from John all the ways quick research can empower your teams. You heard from Nikki how Principal Financial Group is transforming their research and analysis across multiple use cases. You heard from me, how AstraZeneca is automating their alerts process all using quick research. So at this point, I really want you to now start exploring what's possible. So if you scan these QR codes, there's two here. One is for our QuickSuite community, and the other is for our AWS Skill Builder. So if you're not familiar with the QuickSight community, I really encourage this resource. Not only do we have tens of thousands of members that participate in forums and help each other out with using QuickSuite, including, of course, our own moderators. We post events. We have weekly and monthly events that, sometimes are virtual, sometimes live. We have tons of learning resources. We have interactive demos. So please check out that community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.